Everybody to the latest episode of Forever Bristol City podcast. We used to be in a roller coaster of up and down, but I think I'm right in saying that's 3 defeats in a row now, including the Port Vale reverse. Lost 4 out of the last 5. And I have to say, never mind the result, poor performance at the King Power Stadium last night, where it finished Leicester City 2, Bristol City 0. The natives are getting restless on the forum, but nobody really wants to listen to them. I've got a stellar panel of guests with me today, or contributors, as usual. Dave Tubby, the legend that is Dave Fevs, and not wishing to miss out on the Dave connection, and Dave Banks. That's not really your middle name, man, is it?
It's not.
No.
But I might go by Deedpole, as it's clearly popular.
All right, well, there you go. The 4 Daves, the 4 amigos. One thing we are is a group here is together, but I don't think that applies to City. Let's have, as I always do, you first, Dan, your thoughts when that final whistle blew at about 9:27 last night.
They didn't really change from my thoughts through a lot of the game. It felt flat. It felt flaccid. It felt that we had loads of the ball, but we never seriously looked like threatening the goal. It felt like the players had given up to a degree. There wasn't the level of effort you see necessarily. I'm not going to use the phrase like lost the dressing room, because that's just pointless, and I don't think it helps anybody. But what I think you are seeing is the disillusionment of the fan base is now also being reflected on the pitch. I think they've woken up to the fact nothing is happening this year. They've probably woken up to the fact their manager is being set up to be got rid of, because certain people have agendas, and they've probably woken up to the fact that actually some of the players who they may consider being the mainstays may not be here in the summer. So the malaise is spreading, would be my thoughts at the final whistle.
Okay, Dave Fevs, that's quite stinging criticism there from Ant. Justified, or do we have to look at it in the round a little bit more?
I think I would look at it slightly differently. I think, I don't think it was as bad a performance. I think, typical of football, isn't it? Goals lead opinions, and we can see 2 pretty crap goals, and I think that influenced the rest of it. I think a team, that aren't really trying, capitulates and loses 4, 5, 6 on a night like that at Leicester, and we didn't do that. In fact, for much of the second half, we got exposed by a few counter attacks, but we were a better side. We didn't create many chances, but we created some really good scenarios. A couple of times, Sykes got the ball in really good positions and picked absolutely no one out. And and those are the fine lines that differentiate between a team with quality out there and a team that's not got quality out there. So I guess we'll talk about lots more later, but that's my kind of summary. I wasn't surprised we went and lost last night. I can tell you that.
No, and probably won't be surprised that we'll probably get a hide-in or defeat at the Riverside on the Saturday, but we'll look forward to that one later. Dave, I agree with what Dave Fev said there, that the second half, we were doing okay, but they were a team there ready to be beaten. I mean, they'd gone into that on the back of worse form than us. They'd lost their last 4 under new manager Gary Rowett. They'd hadn't kept a clean sheet for the 30 games going into this, and they looked pants to begin with until they got those goals. But what were your immediate thoughts on the 94 minutes, or whatever it was?
Well, in the propaganda parts of the pitch, we played pretty well. I thought we were all right. We didn't look too bad. The problem is that the game is won in both boxes. And this is made even harder when you consider that at the moment we are playing football matches versus 12 men. We've got 11 players to play and our own recruitment team, which has a deft touch for assists. And when that's happening, you're going to be up against it in every single game. And everything that happens in between the boxes, we can look as good as you want. If you can't win those 2 ends of the pitch, it's the same story over and over again. So cheers, recruitment, for your assists yesterday. Well played.
Yeah, Dave, I'll stick with you for the starting lineup. He's playing 3 at the back, and he made, I think it was 4 changes in all. One of them forced because Randall had to miss the game. But playing Ross McCrory on the left again, should he really be playing a back four or try something a bit different? Because, it's not working what he's trying at the moment. What did you think when you saw the lineup?
David, it was a back four yesterday. To say, okay, it's not quite right to say it was a back four because there's a lot going on and a lot of technical tweaks he's trying to do. But it was very much Tanner is the right back and Macquarie is the left back. What's the alternative? Naylor, who's never played a championship game, going into the fire of that particular situation? I'm not going to say we didn't play a back three at any point yesterday because in the second half, it looked like it. And just to refer to CMB that I'm always going on about recruitment, you're going to get bored because I'm going to bang that drum and bang that drum every single time that we concede a goal because of it. And every single time that our strikers don't do their job, I'm going to keep banging it. So if you don't like the tune, I'm not the guy for you. Cheers, recruitment. Thank you very much. But no, yesterday we did play a back four in the first half. What's the alternative? People are saying we can't keep doing the same thing over and over again, but he's got to look for something. And I wanted to see that change yesterday, and I didn't feel like he had much of a choice.
I think just to add on that, Dave, to jump in, there's a lot of comments all over social media about, we never do anything different. There's no plan B. I honestly don't know what people have been watching over the last 8 games because we've tried lots of different stuff. Whether it's worked or not is a different thing to debate.
Well, is that a problem, Dave? Whether it works or not? Because if he's trying this and that, there was talk prior to the game when the team was announced that Jason Knight was going to play as a right wing back, which he did a number of times for Derby County. And I know that from Derby County fans. So, what was he doing posted out there? And Dave Tubby says about Naylor, put him into the cauldron of Leicester. He acquitted himself quite well at Port Vale.
I think, I think you have to look at, who were Leicester playing on their right wing last night? Abdul Fatah.
Fair play.
If you want to give Seb Naylor his full debut in a league match there. Yeah, okay, you can throw him in baptism of fire and all that, but I'm not sure that's really the way to expose a youngster who's played his first game of men v men. Was it last week or a week before? I think we have to be a bit sensible with this. I think formations, more formations. I'm not. It's all about players at the moment. We haven't got the players to really play any system, and I think you have to then go and say why is that? We'll probably talk about that later on as well, without kind of breaking away from what the game is. For me, I thought we set up as a bit of a funny 4-4-1-1 type formation. Certainly when we didn't have the ball. With the ball, we tried to kind of build out in kind of back three type shape, but we can't even build out from the back really when we've got certain players in the team who aren't capable of doing that. So I think he's caught between a rock and a hard place at the moment, and that comes back to more higher up levels, doesn't it?
Yeah. And when you look at the starting lineup on paper, and just okay, Tanner in all that, but he's a regular. Elah, we'll talk more about him as an individual maybe later, because somebody said, when are people going on the forum, there's a thread, when are we going to ask about Noah? He's certainly not a first ball winning centre half. Neto Borges, big question mark about him. Vitek in goal. But then if you look at what's in front of that defensive unit, a midfield of Knight, Bird, Morsey, and if you say Twine and Horvat as well, I would say all four of those would get in most championship teams. So it wasn't at the back it was weak, but there's enough quality out there, surely.
David, that's the propaganda.
Yeah.
What you spoke about is the part of the pitch, it looks good. But the propaganda is both boxes, is not that. It's where you win football matches. And where you win football matches is where we are weak.
Yeah.
And your thoughts on that team? On paper it looks good, but as Dave Tubby's rightly pointed out, propaganda area.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely spot on when the propaganda area. If you look at, you've given the names in midfield, Bird, Morsey, Knight. Now, of those, Jason Knight is, in the first half, certainly being taken out of his best position because he's playing that a bit wider. So he's not really playing in that central midfield. And when we talk about Elah, a couple where he won the ball, didn't get particularly powerful header, and we weren't getting second ball in the first half for me that much. You've got Bird, who's coming back to fitness. And you've got
first
Morsey.
Start last night.
Pardon?
First start, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So although Bird fully firing gets in championship teams, he's not fully firing yet. And you've got Morsey, who for me has been pretty disappointing on the whole, because I don't think he really fits us. So, although, yeah, you have the ability to win the propaganda area, as we're calling it now, it's not really anything there that really excites you. You've got your best midfielder from last season playing out of position, a midfielder coming back from injury, and a disappointing midfield who doesn't really fit. You've then, as you go further up, you've got Horvat is, again, still adapting to this level of football, has made a fantastic start, and it isn't really much going on there. So when we talk about there's little fires everywhere, there's the fires at the back of you don't have a dominant centre half. There's the fires at the wide at the back where we can't build from the right-hand side. There's the fires out wide where Mark Sykes has forgotten how to cross the ball. There's the fires in the centre of midfield where there's really no creativity and pace there. We had like 60% possession last night, and I think we had one shot on target, and that was a penalty. So you can't say when you're pushing up that pitch, actually things look really, really good there, because you're not actually troubling anyone. We had, I think, 7 corners on the bounce in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, we did. No, that's right.
And we barely looked like doing anything. And Borges obviously had the header, but there wasn't much going on there. So I kind of dispute that actually it looks quite good going forward from there, because genuinely it doesn't. And we can annoy people by saying that's all about recruitment again, and which is absolutely hamstrung by the ownership. But
yeah, it's coming back to that. It's coming back to that all the time. Never mind about Mark Sykes for getting out of cross. Maybe, I mean, he's getting a lot of criticism from some people on the forum that he's down tools. So, yeah, if I'm going to jump on that bandwagon, I'll say maybe he's forgotten that he's being paid by Bristol City, so he should still give 100% effort. But you're right.
I thought last night he, bar that, final ball into the box, I thought Mark Sykes looked a bit more like it last night. Certainly more than he has done in a couple of other recent performances. I'm still amazed on the chat that people are looking at Noah Ayler as someone to criticise.
I don't think we can. I think he's been exposed. I mean, I think he's a good.
And
he's the sort of player.
In my opinion.
He's the sort of player that when he comes on, if you're playing and you're starting one of the regulars, let's call our best two are probably, when fit, our best two are probably Atkinson and McNally. I think Dickie's legs have gone, to be honest. But if you have somebody like Ayler coming off the bench, he's okay. He is adequate, more than adequate. And there we go.
But it takes time for a player like that to adjust to the Championship, and you're asking him to be a leader and have qualities that he doesn't have. And we revealed our poker hand yesterday with the sheer amount of short corners that we took. There was a reason that we took that many, because we don't offer a threat when we put crosses into the box. The other teams know it, we know it, so we have to try and manufacture different ways. But the problem with Ayler is he's not supposed to be playing every game. He's not supposed to be the first contact defender, and that's what we're asking of him. And then we're saying, well, why are we so... why are we not producing anything in an attacking sense? Well, you've lost the outballs of Viner, one of the best players for splitting lines in the Championship. You've lost Atkinson's ability to drive through. You are right that Dickie maybe has been off of it slightly lately. However, he still possesses the ability to split passes. And when you put him with Viner, that opens up many channels. We just completely lost that. And we wonder why we're struggling.
Our season is defined pretty much by... can we play our best players often enough? And not necessarily on this podcast, but on other ones. I think if you've got, go back to the kind of early parts of the season, if you've got Viner, Dickie, and Atkinson as your back three, and you could rely on them to play every single game at a reasonable level, that is a hell of a foundation to at least be able to put together a set of results that might have you in or around, kind of 6th place. But we spent all of the autumn playing Zach Viner in midfield, which meant George Tanner plays right centre-back, which is a suboptimal option. Even when Viner did go back into the back three, because Rob Atkinson was out, so we ended up playing left centre-back. And even just around the turn of the year, he had to go and play right wing-back. So... and then you add into the fact that we then lose Atkinson and Dickie over a short space of time.
Yeah.
I honestly can't think. This comes back to recruitment as well, Dave. In that you're playing with a back three system that's been proved to be pretty effective. I don't buy this. Oh, he's been found out. We weren't found out in games against Hull, for example, fairly recently. We've not been able to put out the right level of defence for 4-5 months, is it? Something like that?
Yeah.
Is it any real surprise that we probably were kind of quite up and down during that period in terms of, it's probably got win one, draw one, lose one type scenario rather than the flying start that we got? No, it's not. And then you take that out and people are still expecting the same results. Probably upstairs in the boardroom are still expecting the same result. Ain't going to happen. My expectations changed the moment Zach Viner and Anis Mehmeti were sold. Regardless of whether we brought Ayla in or Horvat in, and then regardless of, my expectations lower again when Atkinson and Dickey are out for the rest of the season, as is Joe Williams. You think, it's just coming back. We're just getting a squad back together.
Yeah, we were saying that. We were saying that barely 3 weeks ago, that we had like 2 11s that were not a lot to choose between them. There wasn't enough quality, but we had numbers. We had the depth there. Let's get into the action of the game. And like in all of the games of late, we started well. Morsey had a shot tipped over early on for one of the corners. Twine forced a corner. Morsey crossed, headed over by Borges. Dave Tubby. That was a decent start. Like we've seen it so often of late, haven't we?
Yeah, we were at them. It came across as a side with a bit of a point to prove. People often speak about Struber needs to get into them. I think that's what you saw at the beginning. And it all comes down to that Boris chance. It's not, I wouldn't say it's an easy a chance as the one he missed in the weekend, but it's the kind of chance that sets the tone for the whole game. You've been on top first 5 minutes and you don't take that chance. But no, it was we have like 3 corners in a row. We took short corners each time. We were looking okay, but then we know what comes next.
Yeah, Dave Ant Banks. I could sense, even watching it on TV, I could sense from afar there was a tension in the Leicester. I've never seen that ground so quiet, so many empty seats. There was tension there. But, with a player like Mavididi, you've got somebody that does know how to play. And Fatawo, there's some good players there. And he brought a good save from Vitek early on. That was the first, after we'd had that early pressure.
Yeah.
Vitek did a good save. He palmed it away, just far enough away from Bobby De Cordova-Reid, our former player. That was a good save, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a good save. And I think you're right in terms of Leicester, the atmosphere and the environment in the ground. There were empty seats everywhere. You can see, the feeling that's going on around that club at the moment. Again, they've not kept a clean sheet for 30 games. They hadn't won a home game for a significant amount of time. And so you can see that they were coming into it with probably an expectation of losing. And we did the right thing. We pressed them early. It was quite open in the early stage, therefore, because, again, I thought their strength was clearly in the attacking third, and we looked vulnerable when they went at us. And it's a really good save by Vitek. Just about gets it far away from De Cordova-Reid as he's coming in. But you could see they had a threat. They had a threat down both sides with pace. We were vulnerable to them, both because we are brittle at the back right now, both because of the first ball and because generally we're running on fumes with defenders, but also because, albeit that they've fallen off quite a lot, they do still have some very, very talented players, particularly in the attacking areas, and our way of winning that game was to probably punch first and get the goal. I think that's 9 games in a row we've conceded the first goal.
It is, no, absolutely right.
We're giving ourselves mountains to climb.
Yeah, and you're always giving yourself, as you say, the proverbial mountain to climb. Dave Fevs, let's talk about the first goal. McCrory committed the foul. I've slagged him off a little bit recently because I don't think people say about Scott Twine, is he worth what we paid for him, 3.5 or 4.5 million, whichever number you want to pick. But this season, I think he was crap last night, although he was very annoyed when he got taken off, it seemed. 10 goals, 8 assists from Twiney. McCrory, that was a lazy foul. That was a lazy foul, and he seems to stroll through games. I mean, what's your views of McCrory? He's not in our funding, 2.5 million. We expect more, and he's not doing it for me. Am I being harsh? And let's talk about the goal as well.
Yeah, I think there is a view from fans that we look too much at, I call them aesthetics, what a player looks like. And we do that both for the negative and for the positive as well. If someone looks, nice and kind of technical on the ball, we go over the top about them. And if they, they run a bit funny like Ross McCrory, we see that as a negative, and I don't think Ross is one of those players you'd call, aesthetically pleasing, but he's on his day, he's a more than capable championship footballer, and he's proved that. Last night he's come back from injury. Don't forget, he's probably been rushed back a little bit as well, and he's playing against probably the best right winger in the championship. And so there's context to this. Did he have a great game? No. Did were there times when he got the ball to his feet on his right foot and it looked awkward? Yeah, but it looks awkward wherever you play Ross McCrory. Ross wants to get the ball and move off of his first touch. He don't want to sit with the ball at his feet and have to think about what he's doing. And unfortunately, last night was one of those games where that happened a bit too much. So, yeah, I think we have to be careful about making general statements on one performance. What's he been like over the season? He's been okay, hasn't he? He hasn't been anything great, hasn't been anything bad. Last night I think we're playing with a team of players who aren't as good as the team of players were earlier on this season. For me, I expect worse performances. Okay. On OTIB you've probably seen it. I call it like the Bagpuss effect. Who's Bagpuss and who are the mice in the mouse organ? Because when Bagpuss plays, so do the mice in the mouse organ. And at the moment we haven't got any Bagpusses out there on the pitch. So the mice are asleep in the mouse organ at the moment, and it's probably the worst football analogy ever. But it kind of tells you how teams are structured and how leaders lead, and that's not necessarily captain leaders, it's leaders, but like Anis Mehmeti, who leads by running at full tilt for 90 minutes of a game and can produce a bit of magic, even though most of the fan base will slag him off and say he's unproductive. That's the kind of things that we're missing now, and that lowers down the whole level of the team performance, and we don't have enough players who can lift the other players.
I'll come back to the goal in a second. I just want to pick up on your point there first with Dave about the Bagpuss analogy there. You look at that team again. You got players like Knight and Morsey out there that are so-called leaders. Neither of them seem to be showing much of that at the moment, except in the fact that Morsey's legs are gone. But people are saying Knight seems to have adopted the. Who was that player that always used to do the pointing for City?
Kilkenny.
He's doing
Kilkenny, you're thinking of.
He's doing a lot of pointing and waving. Do we need a Bagpuss out there, Dave?
Which Dave? You've got three.
Dave Tubby.
Yeah, we do. Of course we do. Normally it's going to be one of your midfielders, going to be one of your centre backs. You need those real leaders. You need those first contact winners. You need those, the one that the ball seems obsessed with their head. You think of the best sides that have been, most of them have one of those players that is commanding and leads. And they lead from what they do in their actions. And I don't think we have one of those right now. Often you'll look at McCrory as, say, the heartbeat of the side in his wing-back position. And I agree with Katie that he's probably the best wing-back that we've got. He is he's the one part of the aerial threat that we've got going forward. But through the side, it's missing that aerial leadership almost. And once you lose the airways, you are in trouble in football. So, and to link that to the goal, it's very much a case of a Bristol City Airways, welcome, fill your boots with the buffet. If you look at the goal itself, it comes from a cross. Bird is challenging for the ball, but nowhere near enough. And Tanner, I don't really understand what he's doing behind the challenge. He's kind of pulling off, but he's got to make the striker's life more difficult. So I would absolutely say there, it's an assist from talent acquisition, not recruitment. I'm learning my vocabulary, but they played their part in that. And every single club knows it. And what I would say is, as a team, you know that you're poor in the box. You can't be giving away free kicks like that because you're just asking for trouble. And that's the issue with giving away that type of free kick.
All right. And the goal, tallest player on the pitch, was he? Nelson. James free kick, 0-1. Any questions over Vitek about taking the ball or?
No, not for me. Just to backtrack on McCrory, he cost us 2 million, not 2.5 million. I think we will probably end up selling him this summer because I think we've pulled a Sykes again where we've just exercised our options rather than talked about renewals. And the time to talk about renewals is when you have the option, you have the skin in the game. If we are to sell him this summer, we will get that 2 million back. I don't have any huge doubt over that. I think he's perfectly capable, serviceable at this level. I don't see McCrory as being a massive issue to us. And if you take out that awful injury he had when he started, I think he's probably given us VFM over the period we've had him. So I'm not really up for saying. I think he has his weaknesses. I think he's quite limited in terms of he's more, as I said, push power rather than anything else. He's not very silky. He has got a good finish on him, but we'd make our money back on him, and we've had decent service from him. So I think he's overall been a decent signing by talent acquisition, recruitment, whatever you want to call them. In terms of the goal itself, do I lay any blame at Vitek? No, ball's far enough where I wouldn't necessarily expect my keeper to come out for that whatsoever. Again, it's stating the obvious. We have a clear weakness. I think I said after the Vale game that we are going to be vulnerable to balls in the box. We are going to be vulnerable to high balls. It's clearly going to happen on there. There were some people on the forum said, there's a foul on Bird or Tanner by the player because he's got a hold of his shirt. You expect to have hold of a shirt in a box. That's just basic normal contact.
That's the game
it's
today.
Basic normal contact. You're never going to get given that.
Was it Birdie beat for the header?
It was Birdie beat for the header with Tanner behind him. And it's not a foul by their player whatsoever for me. It is just simply, it's a decent delivery, but it's just so easy. We cannot now defend against the most basic balls in the box because we don't have people who are going to go and win the football. Max Bird may be 6'1", but he's not a guy who's going to go and win the ball in the air.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, just going to make a point on that. I think what we've seen with balls into our boxes, if they're anywhere in the kind of Vitek zone, Vitek predominantly manages to get rid of the ball or catch it and take that pressure off. But if you put it back in that kind of another 4 or 5 yards further out, like the free kick yesterday, you've basically mitigated Vitek coming out and taking it, and then you give yourself a pretty good chance. And I suspect, I think I said it like first game of the season after we played that friendly where Vitek came out and took a few high balls. I said any kind of opposition scouts watching it will be saying, don't put the ball in the 6-yard box because our keeper's going to come and gobble it all up. And we saw actually for many months, hardly anyone putting the ball in the 6-yard box. They'll probably take a few risks with it now, thinking, well, maybe, we might get a bit of luck from there. But most teams are trying to hit it for that like 8-10 yard spot, aren't they? Trying to find that, the runner onto it. And we haven't got the aerial ability to deal with that. I guess you could, people say, does Struber get any criticism? I'll criticise him yesterday if the plan was from Max Bird to Mark Ben Nelson, because that's a poor 1v1, but you probably, because Ayla's got someone else, and so you're kind of down to like.
And Bird is not known for his heading ability, far from it.
Not at all. No.
Dave Tubbs, the crowd didn't seem raised by their goal, but the players certainly did. And for Tawu, he set up Mavadidi, shot hit the post for Tawu, then put a cross in. James bought a save from Rajek Vitek in our goal. And then after that little bit of pressure, it came as no surprise when on 27 minutes they got the second goal, and it was a good finish. But again, I don't know. Could it have been? Was it bad defensively? Where were the mistakes?
Oh, it was. A lot of what you were seeing kind of goes without saying was bad defending. The one where they hit the post, first of all, that comes from not winning a first ball yet again. The knockdown goes on and it ends up going out wide and he hits the post. The goal itself is actually, I'd say, more structurally poor defensively because it starts on a halfway line and within 2 passes they're out wide. The first biggest issue is that Tanner doesn't engage. And we've been speaking for a long time about how he's not a right centre-back and more of a right-back. Well, any right-back knows that you've got to get there quickly. Your job is to stop the cross. You won't stop every cross, but you've at least got to be there. He doesn't. He just doesn't do anything. And it's not the first time. He doesn't engage quick enough. So I would question, is he actually that good a right-back? Right now, Tanner playing every single game is part of the problem. The cross comes in. We know we've got a problem in the box. We don't deal with the ball. I do think it's a fantastic finish. And no, I don't think Vitek can really be expected to do much there because the finish is so good.
Fevs, it was a good finish and helped on by Bobby Reid. Somebody has said Twine was ball watching a bit, but you don't expect to have Twine right there on the far post. And Dave Tuvey's also said about George Tanner. There's been a few comments on OTIB that he was sort of a little bit slow, jogging back on a couple of other occasions. And I said last week, he's in a comfort zone, George. He's signed a contract. He knows that this is about his level, the maximum level he can get to. So your comments on that second goal and George Tanner, Dave said, is a problem based on his current form. He's not doing it.
Yeah, George Tanner, I got no problems with being a squad fringe player. Come in, play, the odd games every now and again. I've just looked up. He's played 2,849 minutes. He's played 26 full 90s this season. That to me tells you that you're playing with a suboptimal team too often. And I could go chapter and verse on George. It's not just his fault, but the second goal yesterday doesn't get close enough to his man to stop the cross. We hear all this stuff. He's the best defender in the club, or sometimes you hear he's the best one-on-one defender in the club. I kind of debate all of those. I think one of our good friends, Dave, calls him the best touchline defender in the championship, because he is decent when he's got the touchline to be able to pin his man against, and he defends quite well from there. But anywhere on the inside of the pitch, he's not a liability. That's so harsh, but he's not as good as we need. And that's it in a nutshell, really.
He's found wanting in that part of the pitch.
Yeah.
I agree with what you say on the touchline. When he's got a player there, very little gets past him, but maybe it's a lack of spatial awareness because, he's not, he doesn't see.
Do you remember the Swansea goal? The Swansea goal, the cross was very, very similar. He gave the guy far too much space. And you can't stop every single cross, but you expect your fullback or whoever's there to be doing evering in their power.
Same with Jack Clark, wasn't it? Let him come inside on that right. So he never got close enough to make a challenge, and then the shot goes in, and it happens quite often. And I think people are a little bit OTT on George being as good a defender as he actually is, because I don't think he is.
Yeah.
So steady lower end championship player, but if you want to be in the top half and top six, you need better.
So he's another one. He's another one that when you've got if we're saying that the Dickey, McNally, Atkinson trio, they're first picks, and if you've got the likes of Eala and Tanner to come on if they have to go off injured, that's their standard. All right, and that second goal,
David, just to pause quickly, I had a few comments that were getting it wrong with his name. It's Ayla. And a few people have messaged me that we're not getting English or other languages right. It's Ayla.
Right.
So
Ayla.
Yeah.
All right.
Got it.
And the goal, the second goal, it was a good finish, but people have said about what builds up to it. That's preventable.
I mean, it is preventable. I mean, and again with Tanner, just to follow, I said a few weeks ago, I think pound for pound he has been a very, very good value for money signing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's good enough for us. So again, both of those things can be true. But he's a valuable part of the squad. I don't think he's downing tools. I don't think he's in a comfort zone. This is just where he is ability-wise, And there's nothing wrong with that from him as a person, but there is something wrong with that if you want to progress. And we've talked about the fact that it's a repeat of previous mistakes. And the plural of anecdote is not data, but we have data. We can see what he's doing. In terms of the goal, there are a couple of other things that people may point to. A lot of the play gets forced into that right-hand side, and you end up with probably over half of the penalty area being quite free for the player to come into, and the player at the back post is completely on his own. Now, whose man is he? Becomes a question. Now, Twine's on the edge of the box. Is he Twine's man normally? No. But is he in Twine's line of sight? Yes. Should he be closer to him? Yes. Or should another defender be close to him? Yes. You shouldn't have a guy completely free for when the ball gets to him. So we give him the opportunity to make the finish. So we were sleeping even after the cross came in. It's a really good shot. Vitek, I'm not going to fault him for that one, because I think he gets a hand to it. He just can't keep it out rather than anything else. But
I think it's a reflection, though, of the sheer panic that's happening in the defensive airways, because everyone is trying to focus on doing a singular job, that they're not looking at the team collective. And if you had like your big proper centre halves there that are much more commanding, you wouldn't have a guy at the back post. If we had, for example, Atkinson and Dickey, we don't concede there.
Yeah, all of it is interlinked. All of it is interlinked. So already today we touched on, okay, who's our leaders? It's something we've said before. Where's our first ball centre half? Why are we getting players all funneling over to the right and leaving a massive gap on the left-hand side? Yeah. And it's because nobody out there is taking charge of the situation and saying, right, I'm going to win the ball. I'm going to tell you where to go. I'm going to push you here. I'm going to pull you there. I'm not seeing coherence. And that lack of coherence has come from the fact that we've hollowed out the squad. We've taken out the leaders from there. The people who have come in may well be good signings. And early signs of Ela and Horvat are particularly good. But you can't expect them to come in, Ela. Tomato. Let's call the whole thing off. Yeah. But you can't expect them to come in and make an impact straight away, particularly when they're in a demoralised changing room. This all goes back to January again. And Struber is not, as I've said before, he is not completely absolved of blame whatsoever.
Well, let's talk about Gerhard towards the end of it. I mean, when that second goal went in, there were 20 minutes of first half action left. I've not written any notes to do with City taking the game by the scruff of the neck, trying to get back into it. And they didn't do much either. I mean, the first half, it just petered out. But Dave Tubby, 2-0 down at half-time, on current form and the lack of spirit that we seem to have at the moment, the game's gone, hasn't it? Yeah.
I felt that way. I found once they went 2-up, I found it very difficult to watch. You know, I feel like the soul has been ripped out of watching football at the moment, because you're just watching like the same thing over and over again. And people often talk about like, I want to see like you can lose but play well. We're playing okay in certain parts of the pitch, but we're just short in others. And it's when you know it's going to happen, and then you watch a half play out pretty much as you expected in a negative way, it gets quite depressing after a while, to be honest. And at halftime, for me, the game was done. I mean, obviously we could have come back, but it just felt done.
Yeah. Dave Febbs, you said earlier on in this pod that we did okay in the second half overall. And he made his substitutions, not quite on the 60th minute, but as near as makes no difference. McCrory and Twine going off, Pring and Armstrong coming on. And there was a little Twine, the commentator said Twine didn't seem too amused at being taken off. But the timing and those particular substitutes, any thoughts on that?
Well, I guess we made one at half time as well, didn't we? We changed Bird for
Sykes,
yeah, and swapped Knight and Sykes over. And I think you have to look at those subs, and you know, bringing on Sinclair Armstrong. You know, it's not really a big hope of getting something back out of the game, is it? You know, not really. But we were playing okay. I think about 2 minutes before we got the penalty, I'd said to someone, we just need to stay in this game for 10 minutes. You know, we were getting a bit exposed on the counter, but if we can stay in the game, you need one chance, don't you? And then suddenly you're back in the game and the game's changed. And, you know, lo and behold, we did get that chance, but you know, we cocked it up.
We'll come to that in a moment.
Yeah.
The substitutions, I can remember Struber saying at the pre-season thing with our fellow podcasters and other media people, doesn't like playing square pegs in round holes. But then when you bring Cam Pring on, you can put McCrory into his best position on the right-hand side. And we talk about managing minutes. Well, Horvat did a full 90 yesterday. But, if you put McCrory on the right, Pring on the left, and then Eala and Borges in the middle, Eala and Tanner in the middle, maybe take Borges off. That, to me, looks a decent back four as it reads across from right to left. McCrory.
It doesn't look a decent back four to me.
Well,
but it doesn't look at, and again, it deck chairs Titanic time, isn't it? When you look at that defence, McCrory's best games have actually been generally coming from the left-hand side, both last season and this. He played very well at left.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't hang him on that. It's again slim pickings. You look at it, and there's a lot of chat in the comments, which we're talking about recruitment a lot, and the fault is with Lansdowne. They're two cheeks of the same backside in this. Okay, when we say recruitment, we mean Lansdowne, we mean Tinian, we mean the collective, and the recruitment's got you somewhere where Neto Borges. There was an argument where we said we might sign him, a couple of months ago, where he was actually playing reasonably well. Yes, there were limitations, but since the last couple of months, and some of it has come from the fact that players have been missing. So his relationship he had with Metti's gone, his relationship he had with Atkinson's gone for different reasons. So he's a man on his own. You wouldn't sign him now. But you're left with a position where you're giving me a back four there where I've either got Neto Borges or George Tanner as one of my two centre-halves, together with a guy settling into English football who's not a first ball centre-half. No. I'm not having that's a decent back four.
Yeah, all right. I'm saying that either side of those two, it's as good as it gets. All right, let's talk about the pen. Dave Tuvey first on this, and we've all got a hard stop today, folks. So we're 40 minutes in. We've got about another 20 minutes to go, just under. He had to give that one. Our first penalty away for 3 years. Referee Tom Neal, and it was on Reese. Good through ball by Horvat again. How did you feel when he pointed to the spot and who was going to take it?
I felt like we're bound to miss this now after waiting for so long. But the positive part for all of that was Horvat's involvement in it. Again, he's the best player that we have at the moment by a mile. I'd almost say he's too good for us, the way that we're playing compared to how he is. First of all, like the Zidane roulette turn, the drive, the pass, the 1-2, and then the through ball. I did think it was a penalty. I think it's about time. No, CNB, I am struggling because recruitment is killing me, it's day by day. So it is hard for me to take, and I do sleep about it, dream about it, obsess about it, and I'll keep going on about it. Nice to see you again. But no, I did feel like, he's going to miss now. It's been so long, and the timing shows you sometimes. Twine goes off the pitch. Maybe he would have been the guy to take it. Reese, I didn't feel like he was going to score. The way everything has been going since January, I really didn't feel like he was going to score in that moment.
All right. If he does, it puts us in the game. Dave, Dave Febs, you were shaking your head, so I'll come to you next.
So originally it was a nice little 1-2 with Horvat and Reese, wasn't it? And Reese peeled off the back of him. I actually thought it was a bloody awful pass to Reese, because actually Reese should have been striding onto it and getting a shot away. And actually I was quite relieved that we got a penalty for it, because the pass was actually behind him, wasn't it? And luckily the defender came in and
because that's right, he had to sort of yeah.
So that was actually a bit disappointing. And yeah, you're right though, he didn't look like taking. I haven't even looked, but someone did say to me the last time he took a penalty for Preston was in 2022. And I think he was 3 from that. I'm really surprised he didn't just blast it, because that's...
Well, he can leather the ball, can't he? He can really blast them, Dave Reese. Yeah. And he didn't. Somebody said that on OTIB. Why didn't he just hit it like he drove across into the box against Coventry at the weekend? Wallop, bang.
Yeah, it's the coolest penalty in the world if the keeper goes the other way. It's a bloody awful penalty if the keeper goes the right way. I think Ant said it. I can't remember if he said it at the start of this or when we were chatting beforehand, but they launched a counter attack off it as well. It's like it was the proverbial shit sandwich, wasn't it? But,
yeah. And penalty, were you confident when Emile stepped up?
No. Pretty short. I was sat there with Liam, who looks good last night, Dave. He's got shaved, got good hair. And I said, I don't know who's going to take this. because I didn't know. I hadn't looked into Reece's penalty record. He doesn't strike me as a natural penalty taker. Like, and I was looking around thinking, who is going to take this penalty right now? I really didn't know. And then they cut to Reece with the ball. I mean, it's a really, really bad penalty. It may, again, look good if the keeper goes the wrong way, but he telegraphs the direction for me as he's coming up to it. It's not in the corner. It's, a yard from the centre of the goal, and it's hit with no pace whatsoever. That is an absolutely abysmal penalty. But it kind of embodied the lack of confidence I think you have as a squad at the moment, because I didn't believe he was going to score it. I don't think anybody believed he was going to score it. And I don't think he believed he was going to score it. But for the keeper to not only save it, but be comfortable enough to grasp it and get an attack started straight away, that was absolutely insane. It was a really, really bad penalty. And it was probably symptomatic of where we are as a club at the moment.
Yeah. And it came at a time, 62 minutes. It came at a time when, had we got it back, I mean, if you looked at how we played against Coventry, that second goal killed it. But if we'd have got that goal, against Coventry at 2-1, you're always in with a chance. And here you are, you're up against a Leicester City team that would have been panicking, another defeat or surrendering the lead, because didn't they lose 3-4 at home to Southampton fairly recently? So they were
3-0 up and lost 4-3 to Southampton. You score that goal, and this is why you go up there, you lever it, you blast it.
Their confidence is shot. And I mean,
we'd have scored. You could have got a second. You could have got a second. You could, but we didn't have the confidence. We don't have the belief that we're going to do things at the moment. The players, the squad, they do not believe that they're going to get anything out of this season. And again, that comes home from the top. I think as a fan base, we don't believe and we're going to go anywhere this season, or probably even next season. The most common comment I'm seeing at the moment is, I'm really worried about next year. And that comes from the top.
I think they are.
There's a very good reason season tickets aren't on sale yet.
It's about now that they put it out there that season tickets are for sale, but the natives are restless. Let's just before we sort of talk about where we are and what have you, Dave. We haven't spoken to you for a few weeks on here. Bergzor comes on with 10 minutes ago for Reece, and I haven't asked you on this platform about Delano Bergzor. I mean, was he a striker? Is he a 10? Nobody seems to know. Is it Struber's signing? It was a player we were after in the summer. He's been a big disappointment. And Ollie Thomas on loan up in Scotland, we would much sooner, I think, as supporters, seen a youngster given a chance. I don't know how Seb Palmer-Holden's doing, but here's a guy who turns up at Ashton Gate in a bloody Lamborghini, and he's no upgrade on Fally Mayulu. Disgraceful signing, I would say, about Bergzor. Dave, Fevs, what say you?
You won't be surprised that I don't go quite the extreme view that you do on this, Dave. I think Saturday, I thought he came on and played relatively well. And if you compare it to the kind of whole team performance last night, not a lot happened for him. I think overall, I think first of all, I think he's a forward. He's certainly not a striker, is he? Not a striker in terms of someone like Emil Reece. He has played centrally for Huddersfield previously, but he's a player who likes to kind of drift off that kind of left-hand space. That's his position. You might call him a left 10, you might call him a left forward or whatever, but he's certainly not a centre forward in terms of what we think. I think he's probably an okay Championship player. He wasn't a regular in a good Middlesbrough side, and they were obviously pretty keen to let him go, although they made us fight for it. I think they if I'm a betting man here, Dave, I'm saying they pushed it in August and we pushed it in January, and they thought, well, as we're pushing in January, we'll make them wait a little bit. We'll make sure we get our Leo Castledine in. We'll wait for us to get our Jeremy Sarmiento in, and then you can have him now, Bristol City, but we'll keep him around because we might need him, but not.
But you look at the two that you just mentioned there that Borough bought in, Sarmiento and Castledine. I mean, we probably got no chance of getting somebody like Sarmiento, but Castledine, that would have been a good sign for us, would it not, in January?
I think on what I've seen of him, I think you would see him as a nice little piece of succession planning. I think, and I think as well you could sell. I'm talking like I kind of know here, but I think you could sell a role with Leo Cassidy. He's going to get more minutes for you this season for Bristol City than he is for Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
That might be appealing, and I think, but I don't think we were even in for him. So
no,
it's kind of a bit of a
again,
point.
pin that
But
on recruitment.
Bergzorg has been disappointing. I'm not going to argue with that, but. I don't think he's been as bad as being made out. It's just not what we need, really.
Okay. Borough away and on Saturday lunchtime. Tommy Conway's not done it against us so far in his time up there, but omens aren't looking good up at the Riverside for us on current form. You could say the side is strengthened by the fact that we're not allowed to play Borges and Bergzorg, but looking forward to Saturday.
They might insist
another
we
defeat
do.
incoming, I fear.
It could. I mean, Conway has actually played well when he's played against us. I mean, I thought he was excellent against us down at Ashton Gate this season, and he's developed as a player markedly. I mean, he always had a lot of good finishing talent. His work off the ball is exceptional. If you offered me the chance to sign Tommy Conway, I would take it in a heartbeat. And it still remains a bugbear of mine how we got rid of Tommy Conway originally. And again, that can be put at the recruitment department stroke Mr. Lansdowne once more, because we had a guy playing for his local club, loved by the fans, and just because he happened to get a stick all game and then celebrates, he's now the biggest see you next Tuesday in the world, apparently. But I digress. Middlesbrough on Saturday, I don't think any of us see anything other than defeat up there. The way they are playing, the form they are in, it's not going to be typical Bristol City. Middlesbrough at QPR on Sunday were absolutely excellent. They are on fire at the moment. It's going to be very difficult for us to get anything up there. We don't have Borges. I've got no idea what kind of defence we're going to be putting out. I'm assuming that Pring will be playing with Noah Eel, and then we'll have Tanner as well. Maybe you might see Naylor coming in at fullback. I don't know. But it feels like we're going to be very makeshift at the back. Maybe less so going forward. But the form that Borough are in, it's difficult to see anything other than defeat. And again, I hope that the board don't make a knee-jerk reaction.
Well, that was going to be my next comment to each of you by way of wrapping up. Dave Tubby, defeat incoming, Borough away. We then got West Brom at home, and we have got enough points in the bag that we don't even need to contemplate relegation. As I say, I think my 16th place finish is looking more and more likely, and now we could well be there come 5 o'clock on Saturday. But if we lose at Borough, that's 5 games out of 6. And Perish had thought that we did similar against West Brom. I know you've got to get away literally in a moment or two, Dave, but is Struber at risk? Is he going to be the fall guy for the hierarchy going into an international break as well? Because I'm saying the next 2 games, Struber has to get something from them. And as people have said, at what point do you say some of this is down to Gerhard? He can't be absolved from all blame.
I actually see it as a slightly different angle, because you're right in terms of being the fall guy, but it's a two-way relationship. And this is not a man that doesn't have money in the bank, and I appreciate money is a part of every decision we make in life, but he is well off. He might look at this and say, you know what, I don't want to be part of this. I'm not going to be your fall guy. I'm going to walk away. You're talking about him being fired. If I was him, I'd say, stuff you. You don't deserve me. You're not good enough for me. The way that you've treated this football club, I'm not going to be the one you hang out to dry. I walk away. Now what have you got? Because the problem is not Struber. He's not perfect. But he has been put in an impossible situation. And if I were him, I would consider walking away so the spotlight stays on recruitment, Steve Lansdowne, and the ones with power.
Dave, 2 losses going into an international break. And I mean, again, if we get walloped at Borough and then we're losing against West Brom, I noticed the Lansdowne family were absent from the game against Coventry. he thought he had a little bit of booing prior. Well, I think it was the Sheffield Wednesday game. It is going to get more toxic down there. Do you think Struber could be the fall guy, and then any new bloke coming in, he's got half a dozen games to prepare for next season?
Yeah, this is just my view. It feels like this is the Lansdowne playbook playing out again. And it's said with probably some cynicism, but it's undermine the ally, and I've put this on O2. Then you sack the ally, and then you undermine the head coach, and then you sack the head coach. And and if we go back, that was those allies were originally Phil Alexander with Nigel Pearson. You undermine him about the Alex Scott deal, then you sack him. Then that gives you a nice open route then to do what you want with Nigel Pearson. That's exactly what they did, and this seems to be following exactly the same pattern with Tom Rawcliffe initially, and I suspect Gerhard will go. I quite like Dave Tubby's idea that Gerhard walks and exposes them, really, because I think that's in a perverse way is probably the best outcome, because then football takes a look at Bristol City and thinks, what the bloody hell is going on? And I think no, I'm certainly not saying Gerhard's beyond criticism. I think there are some things he could have done differently. I don't think it would have as big an effect as what people think it was. If people thought, if he'd have played a back four all these weeks through January or whatever, we'd be still playing for sixth place. I've got a bridge to sell you. Is that the expression?
It is. I've got a bridge to sell. The one in London.
Yeah, and so I think we are basically hitting a period where we've lost confidence in the team. There probably are, if we were still confident, you might eke some different results out here and there, but by and large, I think we're getting what we deserve really at this point.
I mean, Dan, and I make this a final point for today. And Lansdowne said fans are in football clubs. That pissed a lot of people off, saying that. A lot of people off. Recruitment departments, second to none. Yeah. And here we are, where if we to lose the next two, that's lost 6 out of 7. Are they going to panic? I think it's great what Dave said. Struber, he is a man of principle, and he looked. I held my camera up to the screen on last night as he was walking off. He looks quite a broken man at the moment, and vaguely critical as well about the way the goals are being conceded. But are they going to make him the fall guy?
I think Richard made a point about Struber's times at clubs on Sunday, and he's actually now managed us. It's the second most games he's managed anywhere. Typically, he has a shelf life at a club of 9 months. That might be because he's combative character. It might be because is he a manager who thrives on getting people up and running in the belief, and then that runs out of steam as it goes through, potentially. But I'm not up for him going because the problems are far, far higher. Do I think they will get rid of him? Yeah, I absolutely think they do. I think they will. And I think it will. I think it will probably be post Middlesbrough, because if you remember the Lansdowne playbook that Dave refers to, they got rid of Nigel Pearson after 2 difficult games and before a game where he was highly likely to get a result. And that's the playbook writ large.
They also tried to get rid of him about 4 weeks earlier, just before an international break as well, and then shit their pants, didn't they? But
exactly. So the bottom line of this is, and I said at the time that interview was possibly, I think we all said it's the Gerald Ratner I sell crap. It's the Prince Andrew I don't sweat. It's the Steve Lansdowne fans ruin football clubs. That will be his epitaph at this football club. And when his name is removed from the Williams stand, he will be long gone. And the thing people remember Steve Lansdowne for won't be concourses. It won't be anything else. It'll be fans ruin football clubs. And that's the bottom line.
But he's got enough money. I mean, somebody put an interesting point that does he know how to enjoy life? And even when we got promoted under Steve Cottrell, because Lansdowne didn't like Steve Cottrell and he got rid of him at the earliest opportunity. But are you happy now?
Well, exactly. And
that was a phrase. I didn't realise he said that, but somebody put that comment. Are you happy? It's a bit like in It's a bit like in Gladiator, isn't it, where he says, "Are you not entertained?" So I think he's on the. He's got so much money that he can treat the fans with a degree of contempt.
But that's
And the
because
most contemptuous thing he could do is bring back Little Lee, which some people have been saying, who's sort of chugging along with Lommel in Belgian League
David,
Division 2.
it's because he's uneducated and he doesn't know what a football club is. He talks about fans ruining a fan base. Well, we sing a song about 8 men having a dream, saving a football team. Teams can go through lows, they go down divisions. Fans are always there. Yes, the attendances drop. You can pretend you don't care, but you always look at the result. If that season ticket number went down to say 9,000-10,000 and it hurt him, if people didn't buy merchandise, it would affect him. The football club will never die in any incarnation. It doesn't work like that. He needs to educate himself and understand what it means to be a football fan because he hasn't got a clue.
I don't think it will affect him because he'll blame us for not buying them, and he needs to have a good look at himself. That's the key thing, because he's strangulating the club. All right, Dave, final comment from you. I mean, this has turned out from being a season with hopes of emulating what we did last year to one where we're desperately worried. We're desperately worried about next season, aren't we?
Me, Dave, or other Dave?
Dave, this is Fevs, so I'm no conscious you've got to get away, Dave Tubb. Fevs.
No, I think there's a direction of travel here, isn't there? And I posted in the chat earlier that your direction of travel didn't even start in January. It started well before that, and it probably starts with actually your strategies for things like recruitment and contracts and recontracts, and eventually results catch up with it. And that's what we're getting. And we had that with kind of like Lee Johnson to some extent. People said, "Oh, it's all right in hindsight," but some of us were saying way back that the way we're signing these players and increasing the wage bill and all those kind of things will eventually tip us over the edge, and eventually results will catch up with that, and they did. And I think that's what we're getting now. We're getting to that slightly leveling out for multiple reasons, and some of it's maybe some tactical stuff from Gerhard as well, but we've effectively caught up where we are as a squad at this point in time. And some of that's injuries, some of that's transfers out, some of that's trying to settle in new players. There's a whole load of stuff going on here. But results have probably actually gone worse than leveling out, if I'm being honest. But that's where we are. And
there we are.
It needs something to turn around. And, I look back at January and think, Jesus Christ, we got 10.5 million at least for Antoine Semenyo, no strings attached. And we decided to use that to reduce Steve Lansdown.
But as he says, and this is where he's taking us for mugs, and we're not, because whilst we might not have had 10.5 million in cash, in pure P&L terms, that is 10.5 million in the financial year 25-26, and we could have gone for it. The cost of matching Viner's wage and the cost of giving Mehmeti an offer, that would have given some confidence, and maybe one or two other players. And we could have been going for it, but we're not. We are where we are. 9 games to go. The season, our end of season review. Dave's off. Dave Tovey's off. Our end of season review will be probably coming out during the international break. We'll be reviewing Borough at home. We might do. I've got Dave Tovey and Ant Banks left. Got Borough at home, guys. Is it easier for us to do that one Saturday at 6, or
I'm out?
You've got a wedding, in which case you can't do the game anyway, Dave? Can you? Period. Or can you do it?
No, I just can't. I can't do the podcast.
You can't. All right, and you can't do Sunday either if we do it on Sunday. Because
I can't do Sunday. I'll let you know about Saturday.
All right. Well, no, I haven't decided yet. But it'll be publicised. But look, everybody who's watched us live, hope you've enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed doing it. If you're listening to it on Spotify, I hope you enjoy that as well. And onward and upward. Hardly. All the best, everyone. Goodbye.
Cheers, guys.
Ciao.